says I gotta go, tired of going solo, but I'm never gonna go there again. This is what it is, this is who I am, this is where I finally take my stand. I didn't want to fall, but I don't have to go. I'm not the one with two star hands, giving him the best of everything that's left of. The life inside this man, I've been born again.
Is everything right now, Mr. DeVille?
Yeah. I'd like to be a backup singer on that song. I wonder how many tracks they did, all the dubbing over to get all those layers of vocals.
I don't know if they did it right. Only one.
There's some songs you can't do live like you do studio.
Well, no, that's true. That's true. But it's interesting when you think about it. When you think about how in the old days, say 60s, 70s, when recorded music was born, how they had to do all of this live and make the sound. And yet some of it is so good, and with a 4-track, and just the skill they had, a grease pencil,
yes,
and razor blade,
syncing those magnetic tapes up just right,
and that was the overdub. They recorded like several tracks on different tapes, and then they would play this tape on top of that tape over on another track and that type of thing. Or a lot of it was in the 50s, you just set up the band in the corner, and the lead vocalist and backup vocalists would get in what they call ISO booth, which was this little soundproof booth, which was padded to get a good sound. And they would be in this booth while the band is outside playing, and they'd be singing to the band playing. And then sometimes just a pure live, everything's live. And but the talent the engineers had to have in those days. And it's crazy because the engineers today get so much more money than the engineers got in those days. And the work involved today is nothing near what it was then. But of course, that goes to show that you're paid for what's up here, not the work you do.
Yeah.
It's like everything's like that, isn't it?
And sometimes we get it so precise, but then again, sometimes the most unique things can be just so analog. I think of two brothers that started a pop group, and they were in a eastern U.S. city at a traffic light. And when you hit the button to walk, it has a blind where it chirps.
Yeah.
They released the album. It did really well. They went up there and hit that, and they walked across. They didn't say anything, Dad. And Dad said, "Look, that sounds like your album." And he said, "Yeah, we recorded that sound right here." Sometimes you just use those very authentic things.
Right. But again, just getting back to the whole idea of the skill versus knowledge. Sometimes not so much skill as using technical knowledge. And so they can synthesize things that guys used to have to go out. Let's say in the old days, they had to go out like these. You can go on a computer. Oh yeah, here's the yellow belly sapsucker sound, crashing, engine noises, whatever you want. And you put it on the sound. You just push a button and it's there. And in the old days, they had to actually work for this. But the money the engineer used to get was nothing. They were happy with just the knowledge of their skill. And what was his name? Was it Richard Martin? That was the Beatles producer.
Oh gosh,
he did all the Beatles albums, and he was just this famous producer. He was just this great guy that was able to get the Beatles sound. If you like the Beatles sound, that is. Some people aren't that impressed, but he became famous for being the producer of the Beatles. To me, one of the greatest whoever it is, I don't even know who it is, which is kind of sad, but whoever produced Queen.
Yes.
And Queen, actually everything Queen did, is just phenomenal.
There's one that stands out. Alice Cooper said the best studio song ever done was Bohemian Rhapsody.
Right. Well, yeah.
Studio. You can't hardly do it live without a huge budget.
Right. Yeah. You need an orchestra and an opera. I mean, a choir. And I mean, it's unbelievable. But have you seen the movie? Did you ever see the?
No, I did.
Yeah. It kind of really gives
about
Freddie Mercury. Right. Yeah. And it's quite a movie to see. You have empathy for the guy. I remember the first time I saw him or Queen on TV. It was when they used to have a show. What was the name of that thing? It was just a weekly music show. You used to have the first one. The granddaddy of them all was American Bandstand.
Sure, Dick Clark. Yeah,
right. And then, but this was a show that came on like Saturday night, and I cannot remember the name.
Oh, there's lots. Soul Train, Solid Gold. I mean, there were a bunch of them that would.
Yeah, I think it was Solid Gold.
Yeah.
Anyway, and they had Queen on, and so Freddie Mercury comes out. He's got a baseball hat with horns coming out of it.
Oh yeah,
and showman. And the first time I ever heard of them was Another One Bites the Dust.
Yeah.
And he's walking around, with this
what a
tank top on or this t-shirt. Yeah.
Yeah.
And instantly I said, man, these guys are good.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, what followed was even better.
Oh,
that was just the beginning of Queen. Yeah. And the immense talent, but the tragedy of that life is something, and he's not the only one. I mean, it just seems to follow. The greater they are, the bigger they are, the harder they fall. The greater the star, they burn brightly and then to just explode.
Perfect segue to something I think is really important and spiritual in this. You and I both dads, we've raised our kids, right? Mm-hmm. But we had to confront this about the kinds of influences we allow, particularly our teenagers, kid. My oldest son really, I could tell, was excelling in music. And one of his instructors told me, you have to expose him to all genres of music so he understands good and bad in every genre. And so I had to deal with, what about rock? Because the influence of lifestyle in philosophy. So I initially said, if they're no longer touring, because it's when they're touring that they're most influential. I said, if they're no longer touring, they'll listen to that music. We're talking a 12, 13-year-old boy, right?
Yeah.
And eventually, like Kansas come to town. Now, I know Kansas now. So I took him to a concert. Brady Village, and we're standing in the mosh pit front row, and a woman 3 people down from me takes off her top and throws it on stage, and I got this 12-year-old boy. Oh God! And Bad Company comes on after. Yeah, I said, "Son, don't look that way." And I stood between him and, because it's outside, people are drinking beer and everything.
Were you standing him with your back to him?
No, I do better. So anyway, and Kansas accepted that booking, but they wanted to play first to get that guy because it turned into a drunken outdoor, Bad Company, and then there was another, old classic rock. But you got to deal with that, Eddie. And I don't know what are your thoughts?
Well, no, it's interesting you say that because. Man, we can get into some deep water here, but we'll just wade into it a little bit. Okay, so I've always been that way, and then we joined Youth with a Mission,
right?
And so we're in Amsterdam, right?
Yeah, tons of college kids, right? And YWAM was mostly college age.
Well, it's in the summer.
Okay,
that's the summer of services where they go for the summer. But the staff was all older. But anyway, we had a a group come from L'Abri,
Sure.
Francis Schaeffer's
Yeah.
place to study.
Based out of Switzerland.
Switzerland, right. And so just well-known philosopher and Christian philosopher, but just brilliant man, just truly devoted to Christianity, the doctrine of Jesus Christ. Yeah. But anyway, so this couple came to visit, and they told us basically it was about child rearing, and they had this philosophy. What they did with their kids was not to shelter them from the world, because that's a lot of the big problem with kids. So what they would do is, if they'd hear their kids, other kids in school talk about music groups and so forth. So the kids say, "Oh, somebody's coming to town," say Queen or, maybe Led Zeppelin or back when they were still active, or Prince maybe. And they say, "Okay, let's go." But they would go with the kids.
Exactly.
Like you did.
Yes.
Exactly.
I learned that from my mother-in-law.
Right. And so they would go with, and then after the concert, they would sit down and evaluate what was good and what was bad. They would ask the kids what was good and what was bad. And what did you see? Or for example, in your case, how was the music? And yet, what did you think about the lady taking her top off? I mean, it happened. Yeah. It happened. Don't pretend it didn't happen. You saw it. Your kid definitely saw it. Yeah. And so, but anyway, that's how they did. They evaluated. And so that's what we took that same example. So we never kept our kids from, for example, the big thing when my daughter was, she was 12. Yeah, she was 12. And New Kids on the Block was the hottest thing going. Yeah. And so she wanted to see New Kids. And so I said, she and her little friend, a German friend, she went to German school, so they were going to be in Munich. So my wife drove her and her friend to Munich at like 6 a.m. for an 8 o'clock concert at that night. Oh, geez. Yeah, so they could be, exactly. So they could be like first in line, and here's this 12-year-old. And so she takes them there and hangs out with them, and then they come home. Well, then, because of my doing the touring, I had a friend who was worked with the local promoter when they were in Stuttgart. Oh, okay. So he got us backstage at the Stuttgart concert. How much later was this? This was 2 weeks later. Oh, okay. Yeah, 2 weeks later. So we're there early, waiting for it was Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch. Mark Wahlberg, Donnie's little brother. Yeah. So it was Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch and New Kids. And so we're there, and we're sitting on a forklift or something, my daughter and I, when they walk in, right? And so Mark and his group, they went on one side, and then New Kids came in. So here's me and my daughter sitting on this forklift, and here comes New Kids, and most of them were fine. Donnie, they called him out of the dressing room. We're just sitting there watching all this stuff going on backstage. And they bring this, like, 5 girls. And they bring Mark out to pick one. Basically, that's who he's going to be with that. And that was his girl that night. Groupie. Yeah, groupie. And after the deal, he was going to go be with her. So anyway, and then they put my daughter on the front. They had to save her because the crowds in Germany, they don't have seats in there. Right. Halls. It's all standing. It's all standing. General admission. Right. And they just, and so the guys who were security guys, they were looking out for her because she was still little, Yeah. And so they pulled her out of there. She's one of those, as you see in the films, that they pull out and carry. And then we went upstairs, and I was taking pictures and stuff. But anyway, my daughter, she had seen enough. She saw the real. She saw him from this side, and then she saw him from the other side, and she did not like what she saw backstage. And so she was ready to go. So we're leaving. And this is the thing that's funny that she'll always regret. Maybe, I don't know if she does, but we're leaving. And as we're leaving, and so I turned around and said, oh, hey, Mark, my daughter is fan here with me. Would you mind signing something for her? And I'll have as a napkin or something. Mm-hmm. Oh, no. Sure, where's she? I turned around, my daughter ran. She ran away around the corner. Yeah. And the guy who was with us, who brought us there, he's trying to pull her. So Mark ever saw my daughter was her arm with him, and she's no. You know, and now years later, she was, because I had my camera and everything. You know, he was ready to take a picture with her and everything. But he signed. He said, "It's okay, sweetheart." No, I mean, he was absolutely the nicest. I mean, you had Donnie, and then you got Mark.
Yeah,
it was like two polar opposites.
Yeah. Donnie shops at a meat market for women.
Yeah, I don't know if he does anymore.
No, but he did.
Well, yeah. You know, he was just. I think what happened with him, they had that instant sudden stardom. Mm-hmm. It happens to so many, and some just can't handle it.
Yeah,
and they get put into that. And then Mark, for some reason, it just didn't affect him. He was just the nice guy. He just. I mean, honestly, I can't explain to you. He was just by himself, just walking down the deal and hey, how are you doing? Hey, you know, and I mean, it was just like meeting some kid. He was probably 18 at the time, 17 or 18. And how are you doing? You know, just the nicest guy, ready to, you know, just gentle. But anyway, but so she learned from that. And then, you know, of course, she and my son toured with the Christian groups. Mm-hmm. We'd have them would go on the road with some of them. Mm-hmm. But so that in Amsterdam, of course, we lived in the red light district. So they're going.
You didn't shelter your kids.
Their school was on the other side. So they're walking by the windows where the prostitutes.
The red light district.
The red light district, yeah. A lot of people don't know what a red light district is, so if they don't. But anyway, and sometimes you'd see the prostitutes passed out in the morning, and they're like negligees and stuff passed out in the windows. But what you're saying is exactly right. You can't shelter your kids and expect them to not have some kind of reaction when they're exposed to the real world. For example, I may have told this story before. When we came to America later and visited, and we were at my parents' house, and these friends came over, and my kids they didn't have the TV over there, cartoons or whatever, certain things. And so my kids were in the room watching TV, and these friends came over with their daughters. And their daughters were like probably 11 and 10 or something. And when hey girls, our kids, they're in the other room. You can go in there and watch TV with them. And the parents said, oh no, we don't allow our daughters to watch TV. They get 2 hours a week on Saturday afternoon. And
to watch Superbook.
Well, I don't know what.
Salty the Singing Song.
I'll never forget saying to the mom, oh yeah, let me know how that works out for you.
Oh yeah. I
did. And sure enough, the one girl, when she went to college, just went wild. And the other one is now a man.
Yeah.
And so but what I'm saying, they tried to totally, and I feel so bad because they were trying so hard to do the right thing. They
were working really hard.
Really hard. And they really thought they were doing the right thing, but it just turned out poorly. And sadly, both parents, the other thing, they were totally into this holistic health thing. They were just so into, I mean, they couldn't eat. The poor husband, I feel sorry for him. And they both got cancer and died.
Oh God.
I honestly, it was when I looked at their diet, I don't know how they were alive.
Yeah.
From no meat, no red meat, no this, no that, no nothing with sugar, nothing with this, nothing with that. And the dad friend, he was he was a district attorney and all that. And he, before he passed away, about 2 weeks before, he said his wife finally let him, he could eat whatever. He was eating fried chicken, barbecue, Rocky Road ice cream. It was like the last meal,
Sure.
But she let him eat whatever he wanted because she figured, well, now he does.
Yes.
Because you finally wake up and realize, can you imagine the regret you must have when you realize you've denied yourself all of these things and you've lived this austere life and it feels like it was in vain.
Yeah.
And you've denied yourself and if you've forced your spouse or your children to join you in this and it didn't work out. It's not the right thing.
The regret's heavy.
It has to be.
Think about, we could turn a lot of corners here. What happens when it's the government that's lying to you and denying you? We just went through COVID based on a horrible medical.
And a lot of people died.
Yeah.
A lot of people died.
But something you were saying on it. See, I was one of those corrupting homeschool dads. When we would join like NOAA or other homeschool groups in that, there's a lot of very sheltering families.
Yeah.
And they were, I didn't play that game. In fact, Mike and I were talking about it because a mutual friend of his family and mine, he went to church with their oldest son, who was like the most compliant, clean-cut homeschool kid. He leaves home at 19 and just goes off the deep end. And I don't want to mention names, but Michael sent me a note. He said, man, we really need to pay attention to this. What are we potentially doing wrong as homeschool dads? And I went to this whole thing. I said, look, I don't isolate my kids, but I don't just ignore what they're in. I'm very involved, but I try not to say no. I try to find a way and conditions in which I can say yes, when sometimes the lazy thing is to say no.
Yeah.
Because I said.
Yeah, when we came here, my wife was determined to put our kids in private school, Christian school. And I was against it. And I was against it because the church I got saved in, it's funny, all of these, the Jesus Revolution schools all decided they wanted, not Jesus Revolution movie, all of these churches decided they needed their own schools.
Yeah. And
so we needed our school. And so they formed the school, and I saw what happened there. So I decided I wanted my kids to go to public school. And so what I did, I wrote a contract for my kids. I, Talitha, or being of sound mind and body, choose against my father's wishes to go to blank Christian school. And
did I distract you? I'm sorry.
Not only a bit, but anyway, of my own sound mind and body, choose to go to this school, blah, blah, against my dad's wishes. And here's the funny thing, I will never, ever once complain about going there.
Yeah.
And then they had to sign it. And they never, ever complained. But by their sophomore year, one was a year behind the other one. But by their sophomore year, they were ready to leave. And the two little ones, we moved them earlier. So they all graduated from public school.
This was in the 90s, right?
This was in the 90s, and into the 2000s. But they all moved over in the 90s. And so I've always gotten people, when I was on KFAQ, I would always get into it with people that I was against private school. And my thing is not so much being against private schools or Christian schools. In principle, I'm not. My issue is always this. It's a twofold thing. When Jesus said we are to be not in the world, but of it. Mm-hmm. And I saw that. I've seen that, how what happens a lot of times, you'll be in Christian school and you take your guard, you let your guard down. It's the opposite of what we do, because when they're in public school, you want to be more careful. Mm-hmm. When they're in Christian school, then, they're in a Christian school.
Yeah.
The kids are good kids. They're all good kids. Mm-hmm. It's okay. They're safe. And they're not. Mm-mm. And so that's what kind of got me. Plus, the reason Jesus said we're to be in the world, because we're to be the salt of the world. Mm-hmm. The biggest thing that I think, the biggest damage that has been done in Christian schools by the preponderance of Christian schools mm-hmm. is not pulling your kids out of Christian school, but it's pulling the parents out of the PTA mm-hmm. and the school boards. Mm-hmm. See, it used to be when your kids were in the school, you were engaged. Mm-hmm. And so those are the parents that went to the PTA. Those are the ones that controlled the PTA. Those are the ones that controlled what happened mm-hmm. in the district. Mm-hmm. You pull them out, and then they say, well, the public schools are going to hell, so I'm taking my kids out. Mm-hmm. So it drops a little further. Then the next group says, oh man, these schools are really bad, I'm pulling my kids out. And then
right. But it did two things. Mm-hmm. One, it changed the nature and makeup of the PTA, but more importantly, it changed the total impact of the PTA, because it's the good parents that normally make the effort to get involved.
Right.
The lazy parents, the absent parents, and all of a sudden, if the good parents take all their kids out, there is no PTA left.
Exactly.
And then the school board does whatever without anybody of credibility speaking against it.
That's why you have PTA meetings and school board meetings. And what do you have? 5 people sitting mm-hmm. out there, 3 people. Mm-hmm. You have Alina Ashley sitting there, the board member under fire by the other board members mm-hmm. and no one out there to defend it. Yeah. Those are the type of things that happen. But exactly. So what I'm trying to say is, for those of you out there, I am not against Christian education. I am totally for mm-hmm. it. I just don't feel that everyone should pull their kids out of, and see, here's the problem though. We're in a situation now at critical mass mm-hmm. where public education is almost so bad, if not already so bad, that it's irreparable.
Yeah.
I don't know. But, like you have Alina. Let's say you have Alina. You have others. But is it too late? Can it be saved, the public schools, or is the only salvation for the kids, mm-hmm. as some people say, to put your kids in a Christian school? I don't know. Either way, here's the danger, Dave. Here's the danger, everybody. Eventually, the kids that are going to all of your secular universities are coming out of public schools. Mm-hmm. They're getting all the scholarships to the big schools, okay? And so they're the future lawyers, the future politicians, they're the future doctors, you name it. It's 99.9% the kids that are graduating from your public schools or your private secular schools. And so we're sitting there really thinking we're doing great by sending our kids to our private school, but they come out and they have to live under the rule mm-hmm. of the kids that are coming out of these other things.
Yeah. Eddie,
it's a dilemma. It's a dilemma. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I feel I'm so conflicted because I feel people will hate me or don't understand what I'm saying, that I'm not against the idea of trying to save your kids from the world or the secular
Right.
evil school. I'm just saying it's about you, parents. It's not about your kids.
Right.
It's about you that will save all the kids.
But let's look at something. This is timeless in Christianity and really in Judaism before that, is this sense of cloistered. I have 2 aunts that were cloistered nuns. Wonderful people, but they're just very much separated from the world. You and I are from a generation where the church leaders largely told us to have our own music, right? I mean, listen to secular rock back in the 70s, 80s. And part of that was manipulated by the Christian music industry, who were the windfall profit takers of that, because it was a brilliant marketing move to say you can't listen to secular. So you see it in Christian education and churches augmenting their income by starting a Monday through Friday business on campus, you know, and you see, and they did it with daycare before that in the 70s, right? Most daycares were at churches. But what you end up with, I mean, your kids went to, I won't mention the school, but my kids just a few years later had 2 friends from that same school who died of drug overdoses at a Christian school.
I know.
One of the more prominent ones. So you really aren't protecting your kids. Now, we say, let your light shine, right? Well, let's say the whole verse. Jesus said, let your light so shine before men,
right,
that they may see your good works and glorify God in heaven. If you separate yourself from the world may never see your light.
There's another side to that. I always thought of this, and the one reason was because there were certain teachers at this particular school that I wouldn't have teach my dog. And I
But they had that little fish logo though, so that's okay. And Larry Norman said Christianity is no excuse for bad music.
Yeah.
It's same true with education.
Exactly. And I remember thinking, you know, and I remember telling my kids the difference in secular and why the outcome tends to be so bad sometimes with kids that go to Christian school. Because when a Christian child who's raised properly at home, in a Christian home, goes to a secular school, and the teachers and kids are messed up. They come, Mom and Dad, these kids and the teachers are so bad and they're doing this. And you can say, I understand, son, I understand, daughter, but they don't know Jesus. You can't say that when you're over in the Christian school. The teachers are doing this, they're doing it, they're kind of messed up, they're mean, they're this, they're that. What are you going to say? You can't say it's they need Jesus or they don't know the Lord or da. Well, they're messed up, you know, and then the kids start looking at their kids, that their friends or other kids that are in the public schools or not in Christian schools, and the world just looks different. And then you send them to university where they're exposed to things they've never been exposed to. And it looks good, feels good, and they don't know how to handle it. So I don't want to beat a dead horse, but what I'm saying is just, I'm not saying everybody, not every child is suited for public school. Okay. I'm not forcing or saying everyone must send it, but if you are a strong parent, if you got strong children and you're training them up properly at home, like, for example, my kids all, the older 2 left after the 9th grade, the younger 2 left after grade school. Actually, in grade school, no, in the middle of grade school. And, you know, it was just, we just knew it was the right time. And as long as you know when it's the right time to do it and you give them the proper support, in Germany, for example, and in Holland, they don't have Christian schools.
Mm-hmm.
But what they do, it's really weird in Germany.
Wait a minute, don't the Catholics still have parochial schools?
No.
Really?
No, but
that's an American thing, huh?
Yeah, but what's weird in Germany, like you declare whether you're a Catholic or a Protestant, but when you say you're Protestant, you're Lutheran.
Mm-hmm.
And so you have to take Catholic classes or Lutheran classes in primary school.
In the public school?
In the public school. Or you can write a letter and say you're an atheist or you don't want it.
Oh.
Then you have to take ethics in grade school.
Okay.
From first grade on, you take.
We could use more ethics.
Yeah. So that's how they do it. But they don't. No, they let religion be taught in school.
Yeah.
In grade school.
Because our former Secretary of Education, Bill Bennett, brilliant thing he did, publishing a book called Book of Virtues, because it taught right and wrong, but not from a sectarian or religious point of view. It was just ethics.
Mm-hmm.
It was wonderful. It was written for kids. But I want to get to this last point. I think you're hinting at it. Jesus didn't teach methods as much as principles.
Right.
And when you say about how to educate your kids and stuff, each of us has to look at our situation and make a very personal decision. I think you can advocate for what worked great for you, but you got to be careful not to impose it and say, this is the way it should be done.
Exactly. That's right. And, so for example, the Lindsay Nicole, I forget, it's a 3 name, Lindsay Nicole something scholarship.
Okay.
It's for children with certain mental issues.
Mm-hmm. Probably developmental type.
Exactly. And where they can go to a private school.
Mm-hmm.
It's a scholarship.
Mm-hmm.
And the legislature, the Democrats fought it for years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll tell you why. I know why. Because they want the money.
Exactly.
They want the money for every student that they can get to go to the public schools. It's the OEA, the Oklahoma Education Authority. Yeah. So association, they're greedy. They're just greedy. So when you have, is it Lindsay Nicole Smith? Is that what it is? Lindsay Nicole
I know what you're talking about, but the legislature created I guess it's more of a grant, isn't it? Because it isn't government state money.
I'm not sure, but it's something, but it's designed.
I think I know is. I think actually the money still goes to the school district, but the school district has to cut a check for an outside source to do the educating.
I think that's how.
And oh God, that must burn them to have.
Totally. And so, listen, this is what's so weird. The Democrats are continually harping about how they're so for education. But yet, when it comes to helping these children, they're fighting it tooth and nail.
Yeah.
When in the public school, they're just going to relegate them to be, in some special ed class or something. When there are specialists, I guess you want to say, that can really deal and help these kids. So I'm totally for that. And there are private schools that are actually good schools. Now, here's what's funny too. So take our current mayor and certain city council members, I'm sure, and others who continually talk about good game about education and supporting the teachers, and their kids are in private school.
Yeah.
Right. Their kids are in private school. When, in fact, they were demanding masks during COVID, yet you go to the school down on Peoria. It's almost on Peoria. It's on Cherry Street, I guess. There.
Marquette?
No. Is it Marquette? It's Marquette or what's the Montecasino? Well, there's several of them.
Yeah,
if it's a Catholic school, it's a Catholic, because I went down there one day visiting a client, and I heard all this laughter of children in the middle of, everybody's walking around with masks. And I heard these children laughing as I'm going into this client of mine.
Yeah.
And I look up and there's children laughing and playing and frolicking while all of the secular school kids are at home.
Mm-hmm.
You know, can you say hypocrite?
Yeah, that was Marquette, part of Christ the King Parish.
Okay.
I'm very familiar with that.
Okay. Yeah. It's down on Cherry Street there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is the type of thing that, you know, we see. Mm-hmm. And I can't stand that. Mm-hmm. You know, it's got to be fair for everyone. But again, like I said, I'm not opposed to, in principle, to private schools if you want to, and so forth. But I feel bad for the kids in public school. Not because we're leaving the poor in public school to suffer or anything. Like I said, all of my kids graduated from public school. Right. I think my kids have done pretty well. Mm-hmm. I would say. Yeah. Okay.
Did I see one of your boys on TV last night? I saw the equipment operations from the hockey game.
That's probably not him. He doesn't deal with the equipment, but
yeah, but anyway, your kid's doing well.
Yeah,
one of them's a good friend of Robert Kennedy Jr.
Well,
another one very successful in food industry here. Yeah,
It's okay. It's okay. I'm just saying, and it's not, and it's funny, and I give credit to their mom, who helped, and the fact that I would not. I think I've told this story. I remember coming home one day, and one of my boys. I will say that, okay, he's an airline pilot. Okay, he's a pilot now. But I remember coming home from work one day and walking in, and there he is to meet me at the door saying, "Dad, I can explain." And I think, explain what? I gotta be in math.
No.
I said, okay. He said, but he said, it was hard. It was really hard. That test was hard. And, you know, this goes, I said, well, let me ask you, did anyone get an A? Well, yeah, a couple of. Well, then why weren't you one of them? I mean, that instantly he turned around and headed for his room. But see, I could have said, oh, I understand, Zach. I'm with you. I'm on your side. Yes, it must have been hard. You know, to get that, if only a few people got an A. You know, I mean, that's the normal thing. Good try. Good try. Good. What do you say? Good B for effort. You know.
Well, yeah, both you and your wife are committed to excellence, and it's obvious, and your kids can't pick it up.
Right.
You know?
But here's a guy who never, you know, I finished high school with a 2.1.
I was about to bring up what were your grades? That's why I was grinning.
I'm going to confess, I was not that student. Yeah. But that doesn't mean I have to accept it for my, you know, in other words, like my dad graduated valedictorian from his segregated black school in Mississippi but my dad was brilliant. My mom only finished the 9th grade. Because that's the way they had things.
Well, they were at war too.
Well, yeah, but she was just a peasant girl. No, she was finished with school when
okay.
Well, actually, not when it started. Yeah, I won't go into all
things
that history.
Were rough.
In any event, but I just put it this way: I finished with a 2.1 from high school, and I finished with a 2.1 from college.
Right, but our parents were born during the worldwide depression.
Right.
It was rough.
But see, there you go. But see, again, you're accepting that as, we've got to accept.
Here's where I'm going with that.
Right.
A lot of kids were pressured to leave school. My dad left school at 8th grade to work on the family farm.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of kids faced that.
Right.
Some kids, in fact, grammar school went through 8th grade. Common Ed in Oklahoma, as defined in our Constitution, is through 8th grade.
Right.
You know, so I just want to say that culture had certain norms.
Yeah, that's true. But I'll tell you, no one could handle money in finance more than my mother with her actually 8th grades, because in the way they did it, in the 9th grade, you went to school one day a week and then you worked the rest. You already had an apprenticeship doing whatever you're going to be.
Yeah.
But she, as my dad used to say, she could squeeze a nickel until the Indian rode the buffalo.
You got to be of our generation to know what an Indian head nickel was.
Yeah.
Or buffalo head, some people call it.
Yeah. It was the Indian head on one side of buffalo.
I used to have several of them.
But my dad, he used to say that your mother could squeeze a nickel till the Indian rides the buffalo. But anyway, but I just, at some point I learned that you can't accept a level that you were at if you want the next generation to exceed.
Yeah.
And so this is why I get so frustrated with the Black community, Hispanic community, whatever community, when people are continually making excuses for North Tulsa, East Tulsa, North Philadelphia, Detroit, Atlanta, New Orleans. If we quit making excuses, these urban areas could be the strength of America. Mm-hmm. If we quit flooding our country with illegal immigrants, okay, we could concentrate on those areas. Mm-hmm. Tulsa is an example. If we used our resources on those, what they call them, at-risk areas, but got serious. In other words, ask more, demand more, not demand less, demand more from them. Because see, I've worked up there. I used to mentor a little boy up there, okay, and I used to go to his house all the time, and the mom, it was just ridiculous. Had four kids by 4 husbands, and were
they husbands?
I'm sorry, thank you. 4 different men.
Baby daddies,
yeah.
Yeah.
And it was tragic. She had no desire, no intent on ever getting a job.
Yeah.
She would get a job when Bush tightened up it was workfare, remember? He tightened up for a while where you had to get a job to qualify for welfare. Do you remember? It lasted for about 5 years.
Yeah, Clinton had some of that too. He needed to get reelected.
Right, and then Bush came in and
did some more, yeah.
And she was just grousing about. She was so ticked off about that.
Sure.
She did, but she figured a way. She would get a job and then get herself fired. Get a job, get herself fired. And it was sad. It was sad. I mean, honestly, if she had one of the boys sleeping in the garage with a pit bull, and I would pick him up, and he would just smell like dog pee, and it was a sad
the only
situation.
Affection he got was probably from the dog.
Yeah, but I don't want to digress, but anyway, but the low expectations. Oh, George, the greatest thing he ever said was that soft bigotry of low expectations.
Wonderful principle.
That was
so eloquently spoken.
Exactly. That was the greatest thing that George W. Bush ever said about the soft bigotry of low expectations.
That was a line from his first inaugural address.
Yeah. And somehow people didn't get it.
Okay, let's drill down on that. You and I, both huge fans of Booker T. Washington. He's like the patron saint of North Tulsa, but nobody will teach his doctrine.
No, in the school that's named, he would burn it down today. Booker T. Washington would probably burn that school down or demand they take his name off of it. That should be called W.E.B. Du Bois School. Do you know, I guarantee they would not let his granddaughter speak there because she is a Black Republican, and 2 of his granddaughters.
Oh my.
2 of them. because they are very strong Republicans and they oppose everything that is being taught to Black people and kids by the Democrat Party. It's that bad. It's that bad. And it's funny because Booker T is despised among certain segments of the Black community. Sure. Because he tells the truth. Mm-hmm. He talks about race pimps, race hustlers. Sure. People who...
Malcolm X is just like him. Malcolm X. In many ways.
Exactly. Yeah. He's another one of my heroes, Malcolm X, which is strange. A lot of people don't get him. And I think Malcolm X was... I've always said this, I believe if Malcolm X had not been assassinated, he eventually would have come to Christ.
Yeah.
I really do.
And somebody I listened to last week, and I don't know if you got a chance to, I mentioned Vincent Everett Ellison.
Yeah.
Very much same way. And his principle, we all kind of focus on, but Martin Luther King was a pacifist. He was nonviolent, Malcolm X. And Vincent Ellison says, the greatest love a man has for his nation should not be to die for it. It should be to kill for it. He's not a pacifist. He says, look, I'm going to protect my family. And that's part of me being a man, me being a provider, and so much of Black male population has been emasculated.
Yeah.
Because they've been replaced by a government check.
Yeah. That may be a little step further than I would go.
Okay. You sound like a politician, Eddie.
No.
But I believe it.
I still think, I'm just saying, I know. If you're asked to die for your nation as a last resort, that's a good thing. But to say, that's the, because honestly, anybody can get a gun and kill for your nation, but to give your life, what does the Bible say? Right?
Turn the other cheek.
Well, no, the greatest.
No greater love is amen than this, that he would lay down his life for a friend.
Exactly. But
the
dying to me usurps killing. Okay.
In fairness to Ellison, he said it in the context of, look, we need to stand up for what we believe be responsible protectors and providers as men.
Right. Yeah, sure. And I mean, I understand it. I just don't think he spoke that. He and I agree on many things, as we've talked about that. For example, even on Martin Luther King exposing the real Dr. King. Yeah, we've talked about it. We're not going to get into it right now. You can read about it. It's in here.
Y'all Have Sinned by Eddie Huff. Yeah. Well, for the people listening on the
right that podcast. Don't know, right? Yeah, we agree on Dr. King's background or his theology. Let's put it that way.
His lifestyle.
Yeah, I don't get into his lifestyle so much because I wanted to get more into the notion, I guess, that he was this Christian. Let's just put it that way. Yeah. But anyway, but getting back to the original thought that I was trying to say. I just believe that as far as education goes, public education, because it still is the preponderance of the training up of our youth, our next generations, something has to happen. Something has to change. And that's going to be the future. And DEI and all of these things that are crept in and that are being, and so much of what's going on, in fact, I'm going to move into that now. So much of what's crept into our educational system is centered upon those issues. And for that reason, they're trying to get rid of people like Ryan Walters. Because they've put an emphasis on teaching diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the the negative history of America instead of, isn't it funny how when you and I went to school, and I think probably still when our kids went to school, pretty much, children were taught to be proud of America, the good things, the greatness of America. We had heroes. We don't have heroes anymore.
Yeah.
They don't teach about heroes anymore. Yeah. I still remember the first person I learned about was George Washington. Now, it may have been lies, some of it, like him in the apple tree, kind of chopping down, what was a cherry tree? Apple or cherry, something. And there was one about throwing a silver dollar across the Potomac River.
Yeah, it was something. I don't remember.
You remember? You had something about throwing a dollar across the river or something. Anyway, it's been so long, we don't remember. But anyway, all of these stories, legends and things we heard about George and Patrick Henry and all of that.
But that's why it's the taking down of America. Yeah. Critical race theory. There cannot be any heroes, any people of virtue. Otherwise, people would be proud of their nation, and they can't have that. I want to say something. Tom Basili this morning on Newsmax had a young college kid on. The kid said it great. He says, colleges today indoctrinate us on what to think instead of teaching us how to think. See, I never taught my kids Pledge of Allegiance. I made them write their own. I wanted them to think about it. I wanted it to be from the heart. And because that's indoctrination. I mean, you could say it's pro-America. Some people say it's pro-statist, but it was written by a socialist before critical race theory came around. But it was, just prior to World War II. But you've got to, teach your kids how to think. Yeah. And we just don't do that anymore.
Yeah. Which I said this was going to lead us into, I think, the State Department of Education comptroller has been fired.
Okay. By whom?
Department of Ed CFO Spencer Wood was led out on June 7th and officially looking for, the Department of Ed is looking for a new comptroller since June 10th. This is another hit on Ryan Walters.
Okay, so it would have been him or the Board of Education or both who made this decision, because that's a high level.
Right. And so the whole the article, though, was about Ryan Walters and his failure in hiring and how basically how poor of a leader he is, or how poor of a Secretary of Education he is. Mm-hmm. And I've got another one related, somewhat related story, but so far 130 staffers have left or been fired. Okay, 130 since 2023 January, a year and a half. In a year and a half, 130. Now, 60 of them are people that he hired.
Yeah, this comptroller was hired by him 6 months ago.
Yeah, right.
Okay, right. And it had to do with payroll and how they're handling.
Right, sure. But I didn't want to get into the details of what I wanted to say is it's more with the article itself and the way these articles are being written. This was Egger. What's her name? Eggers, the education writer for Tulsa World.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I avoid.
Yeah, I didn't put her name. I didn't copy her name down, but she's been the Tulsa World education writer for. Yeah, and she just literally hates anything Republican or conservative wise. Mm-hmm. She's a hack. Let me just put it that
Definitely.
way. And I hope she'll call me.
Yeah,
interviews me. But anyway. She is just really trying to say that since Ryan was there, he's just no good. That's what they're trying to imply here. Mm-hmm. And here's the way I look at it. There's going to be turnover.
Sure.
Not everyone you hire. Look at Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the people he hired, they needed to be fired, a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You always get what happens. You get elected, you've got to hire a staff, and some of them were there, but then you've got a lot of new ones that need to come in because some of them will quit. I'm not going to work.
Especially if you're a reformist.
Right. I'm not working for this Republican. You got some of those, and then you got others that you see right away that aren't going to work out well. So you got to replace those. And you got a whole bunch of people that want jobs. I just want to get in there. Then you find they're not suited for the job.
It's true.
So you're going to have that turnover. So half of them were people that probably didn't like him or didn't want to come under the new rule. A lot of them were probably encouraged by haters to quit.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so there are all kinds of reasons that people might have quit.
Yeah.
But the bottom line is Ryan is trying to make changes. He's trying to make changes, which as I get into this other one.
Well, it's a sign of a strong leader when they're willing to say what Donald Trump is known for saying, you're fired.
Right.
Donald Trump was famous for his, administrative philosophy, even before he started the TV show, The Apprentice.
So we're talking about Ryan Walters.
Right. I understand. But I'm making the analogy here.
Right.
A strong leader. First time I had to fire somebody, I walked back into the office and, the old man who started the business, multimillionaire, he said, how you doing? I said, no, not good. I had to fire somebody. I said, it feels terrible. Yeah. He said, well, if you enjoy it, there's something wrong with you. And he's just talking about, look, you're dealing with lives here, but you have to do it.
Yeah.
And that just comes with the territory. The weak are afraid to do it, and they find passive ways to run you out.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing. Going back to Joy Hoffmeister, you talk about weak. Mm-hmm. She was just putty in the hands of the people that have been running it for forever. Yeah. And it's funny because they're talking about Oklahoma has slipped back into what I think, did we hit 50th? Did we hit 50th again?
Depends on who you let rank. Yeah.
But we're back at the bottom, still at the bottom. If you want to know the truth, we never left. We never got hired in 48. Okay. We never got hired. She was there 8 years, people, 8 years. And she promised she was going to get us out. And okay. In 8 years, I never read one negative article about Joy Hoffmeister or the things that she didn't do or did do to get us.
It was always the legislature's fault.
Right.
When she was in charge.
Or the governor.
Remember when we had a wildcat strike and a third of the teachers walked out, they should have been fired. You couldn't find her anywhere. She let the OEA run the show. Because they're the ones who put her in power. She's a puppet.
Right. So you see there, and now Ryan Walters in there trying to get us out of it. And it's nonstop, sure. Negative. He's the Donald Trump of our state. I mean, it's weird. You would think they'd be going after the governor, but they're not. You see where they are really afraid. Where their real power structure seems to lie. And he seems to be really hitting it.
It is the most powerful agency of our state government. It is where we spend the bulk of our state legislative appropriations. And it's largely they would take federal money then, which on top of what's appropriated, because it was a way for them to say, well, we're forced to comply with these federal policies and initiative in order to get this money. Mm-hmm. In other words, it was allowing the Biden administration to run Oklahoma schools. And Ryan Walters saying this stops.
Right.
Because it ended up costing us, in some cases, more money to get in compliance than the money we got. So it was always a shill for imposing leftist policies on Oklahoma, on their state government.
Yeah. And in a related article, some controversial new rules favored by the Oklahoma State Superintendent of Public Education, Brian Walters, have been adopted this year by Oklahoma State Department of Education.
The Board of Education.
By the Board of Education, will be allowed to take effect. And that's because Governor Kevin Stitt indicated Friday that he's going to allow the implementation of these rules.
Okay.
And are you familiar with the rules?
I'm not the specific rules, no. But the process, I want to just real quick.
Yeah, please.
Okay, so the process is the legislature creates statutes, right, along with the governor. But agencies can make administrative rules and code, and how things comply with the statutes. And so they put flesh and meat on it. But Ryan Walters in that agency doesn't get to do that other than advocating. It is the State Board of Education which has the power. A friend of yours and mine, Don Burdick, is one of the members of that board. But you see how they tried to deflect that it's really Ryan Walters, the evil puppet master, who's controlling the strings. But any agency rule then has to be signed by the governor, and then it is subject to the legislature the next session. They can undo it. So I just need you to know that's the process for people who haven't seen how sausage is made.
Right. And the one that they seem to really have a peeve with is one that would tie future accreditation of schools to results of certain state tests taken by. They just hate these tests. They hate for anyone to test the students. Abilities.
We'll actually have to teach.
Yeah. It's just crazy to me that all of a sudden they don't want students tests to determine whether they know the material. I mean, how else can you know if someone knows stuff?
Yeah.
If you don't test them.
Yeah. See, here's the interesting thing. School districts who get all this funding and stuff, they will teach to the test. They will almost to a point of getting you to memorize answers. Right. So you don't actually learn how to think. You just memorize what to think. And this is a beautiful thing of EPIC, who you and I were big fans of, the online virtual education, is those tests were done on computer and the teacher didn't get to see the test ahead of time. And so had to just teach the principles that the kids then plugged in. And then you got a real sense of what did the kid learn instead of what did he memorize.
In Germany, to go to university, the way they have their tests is, and in the school year, you get a test over the entire year. You don't have tests every 9 weeks or whatever. And then after you graduate from high school, you have a general test that covers everything you've ever learned in high school for the whole time you were there. And so you're not graded on your freshman, sophomore, junior, or senior. You're graded on what you learned in high school.
Yeah.
Abitur. And
they want to know do the stuff.
Yeah, sure. And that's how it should be,
Yeah.
And anyway,
I'm sorry.
No more rabbits. No,
Okay.
I'm talking about me. No more rabbits for me because I'll chase a bunch of them here.
Yeah.
So anyway, of course, now here's the fun part. Okay. Some lawmakers, including Representative Melissa Provenzano, Democrat,
we know her
from Tulsa.
Yes. I think we're sitting in her district right now.
Had warned that such a rule would be unfair to schools with greater numbers of impoverished students. In other words, the poor students are stupid.
Yeah.
You can't expect them to know this stuff because they're imbeciles.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, that is just...
That reminds me of the joke, Eddie, where you go in for your doctor, for your physical, and you finish up and you say, well, doc, how am I doing? So, well, you're fat. And he said, I need a second opinion. I can't accept that. Okay, you need a second. You're fat and you're ugly. Melissa said, you're not only poor, but you're stupid.
I mean, that's really, yeah.
Double the insults.
And children with disabilities. State test results have shown that the two groups of students tend to score lower than their peers. Now, okay.
We all know Peter Hawking is absolute imbecile, right?
Well, see, that's what I was going to say. What type of disability are we talking?
Yes.
Okay, if it's a mental disability, yes. Okay.
Cognitive, yeah.
Cognitive, right.
Mm-hmm.
You know, but come on. You know, this, you know, why do they always have to try to make excuses?
Yes.
You know,
they want to look for reasons to justify failure rather than why am I failing? I'm
sure that on these tests there's a box or guidance counselors should pre-approve ahead of time. This person has a learning disability. We're going to separate this group over here. We're not going to count them in the group over here. Obviously, I would bet you $1 million that's the deal, that they're not including kids with autism and other mental disabilities in the general group with everybody else. Okay. So once that's done, the imbeciles she's talking about who are being discriminated against, I don't see any discrimination here. It just is. You just got kids that for some reason never learn. Now here's what's interesting. You know, these preschool. Okay.
Head Start, are you?
Yeah, Head Start. And of course, now you got Educare. The millions of dollars that Mr. Kaiser has dumped in, and other people, he started that Educare and all this money.
Yeah, that uses Head Start's structure. Yes.
Okay. So they've got all these kids going there. And so apparently these kids are doing great when they're 2 and 3 years old. They got a head start. And so they start out, but for some reason, by the time they hit the 6th grade and go to middle school, those kids are no smarter than they were when they entered school in the 1st grade. So somehow they're receding, they're going backwards. Something that also, again, from the Bush administration, Mary Fallon used to harp on this, and it's something that I've never forgotten, and it's so true that by grade 3, we learn to read. From grade 4 on, we read to learn. So if a kid does not learn to read by the 3rd grade, they will never read to learn after that. So if they're not reading in the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, they're not going to get it. And the other thing, once you get into like the 5th grade, your math starts introducing more and more word problems. If you can't read and comprehend, the further you go, the more difficult it gets, because word problems become wordier and more complicated to discern. And that's where you start having a problem.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a really funny thing. When I went to Texas Tech University, the Texas Tech University, everybody said, you know, the
Ohio State.
Exactly. Anyway, I used to hang out in what we call the Soul Corner. The student union was broken up. You had the Soul Corner, the Mexican corner, the frat. They're a group of people.
Yeah.
And it was
it's
probably
nature.
like the world is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's human nature.
So, but anyway, our corner was dominated by spades games, playing the game of spades, card game.
Wonderful game.
And dominoes.
Oh, that's a Black culture thing.
Yes.
Dominoes, yeah.
I would tell you, we had some of the finest domino players in the world. And I would try to play dominoes, and I would get beaten every time, because you had guys there that not only knew what they had, but they could in their mind figure out the combination of what everybody had. It was a mathematical thing of who had what and what was out there.
Years ago, you'd be his Domino's partner with 2 other black guys, and those 3 just clean my clock.
Oh yeah, I mean, it was unbelievable.
Listen, you don't think black men are smart? Play dominoes sometime with them.
Exactly.
God, yeah,
exactly. But here's the deal: I had these guys in my math class, right? And they get in there, flunk math.
Yeah,
they would flunk math. They could not pass math or get a D at best. And I'm passing the math, and I'm thinking, what in the heck? How is this? But it's the way their minds work. They just weren't set up or motivated to think in a theoretical way or something. But it just never computed to me how the same guys that are kicking my butt at 8 a.m. in the student union can't do math at 10 a.m. or 1 p.m. the same day in math class. Half of them would drop out. The other half would flunk out or just barely get through.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I mean, smart guys, I thought, because like I said, they're sitting there, these guys brilliant when it comes to that kind of stuff and could talk well, just could not do math.
Yeah.
And it was just something in the way they processed. So there needs to be a way, someone, and I am sure somewhere someone has figured out a way to convert that, but it's not being concentrated on. I think
it's almost a crushing of a culture if you do that. My president of my Bible school, Kenneth Hagin, would explain things is the Eastern mind thinks, because even scripture event, certain things happen. And I heard one analyst tell Ted Copley, says the Eastern mind thinks in a circular motion, anniversaries, even Catholic Church. You ever notice Christmas Eve Mass? You get the sense that Jesus is being born right now. It's that sense of we are reliving our history by immersion over. And I'm saying all this to say, Eddie, the way our brains process has a lot to do with our culture.
Yeah. No, I agree. But it's just a sad thing. But, if these liberal, bleeding heart liberals, as Archie Bunker used to call them, if they would just invest as much time in actually demanding that somebody start teaching properly to get these minds unlocked, then we might get somewhere. I helped Epic, which these same Democrats and these people are continually trying to go after. I helped him set up a school, and because in North Tulsa, you can't have kids at home. You can't do it at home. It's a program around. But anyway, so So one day when they started, I watched, and these kids were just clueless. And I interviewed them. I said, "Okay, what do you learn?" "I don't know. I don't know." And they had to go up front and do like current events. And the pastor there, he'd have them come do current events. They had a little assembly, and they would try to give some current events. So that was in September. I went back in April of the following year. It was like night and day. The kids got up and they were relaxed. They were sharing. They were giving these current, and then I saw the same kids in math. They were on their own. The teacher didn't have to be with them. He was over in here, and these kids were. And then I went down like to a 4th grade, and there were like one kid at a TV, a computer monitor, and there'd be like 3 other ones around him, and they'd have their paper, and they were 5th graders now working on a math problem. Doing this and this, they were all, and I get goosebumps thinking about it, I mean, it was like they were into it. They were enjoying it, and they were solving these problems, and these kids were doing great. And so I got one of the kids, and I said, "How do you like it here?" It was probably, I think he was in the 6th or 7th grade, and I said, "How?" He said, "Oh, I love it." I said, "Do you want to go back to your other school?" No, I'm sorry, this was a 9th grader. Yeah, 9th grade kid. He said, "Oh, I love it here." I said, "Do you want to go back to your school?" It was McLean. No. He said, I said, what's the difference here? He said, "I feel safe." He said, "I didn't feel safe there. People were messing with me every day. They were, I was afraid every day. And then one of the kids' brothers got shot, the week before and stuff like that. But the kids felt safe. They could concentrate on studying without being afraid what's going to happen to me as soon as I leave school. Or when I get out in the hall, is someone going to mess with me?" So it's just, there's so many factors involved when you're dealing with what we would call inner city. It's more outer city here in Tulsa because it's North Tulsa, but there's so many things involved. And it's so funny that Miss Egger, she was one of the main ones fighting Epic from the beginning.
Right.
From the beginning. I remember when we were setting it up, helping them set it up there, she was already writing negative articles against them. Yeah. And it's just sad. It's just sad.
So in the midst of, actually, as COVID was winding down, I had a chance meeting with a businessman up in Pryor at the industrial park. He was doing some work for one of my clients, and he's on the school board, Shoto Mazie. And I said, "So what are you going to do with your online learning?" He says, "Oh, we'll probably just shut that down." I said, "No." I said, "You guys need to compete with Epic statewide." And I said, "What do you do with your kids who through misbehavior get suspended or expelled?" He said, "Well, they're suspended." I said, "No, you move them onto the online." I said, "Getting to be on campus should be a privilege for good conduct." That was so foreign to him.
Yeah.
And I think we ought to, if a school district doesn't have an online portal and system, I think our state school board ought to, anybody who's suspended or expelled should simply be transferred to something like Epic if the school district doesn't have their own. Because what are we saying? You don't have to do your studies if you misbehave enough. We're rewarding misbehaving.
Yeah.
It's just, to me, it's asinine.
Yeah. We were talking about ACE. There were two versions of that. There was ACE and there was ACTS. ACTS.
I did not know about that.
Yeah, one was for Pentecostal schools and one was for non-Pentecostal schools.
Oh, the ACTS would have been the Pentecostal.
Right.
See, I would taught at a Pentecostal church, but this was in the early 80s. I didn't know about ACTS. Maybe they developed it later.
Because it came out of Church of God, Cleveland, Tennessee.
Really? I thought this was, because it was out of, I thought
ACE and ACTS came out of the Church of God.
I would have thought ACTS. I always thought it was a Baptist thing out of Dallas.
No, it was out of Cleveland, Tennessee, which was odd. But anyway, I've always thought of. I had one time wanted to start a program in North Tulsa, a separate ACE or not AC, but a hybrid, kind of an ACE type program using Epic, kind of that model. But I've always thought ACE, when we came home as missionaries one year, it was in the middle of the year, so we put our daughter in the ACE program there in El Paso. And she loved it, did great in it, because it's individual learning, it's individual programmed learning.
Yeah.
And some kids just thrive. I mean, kids just seem to thrive. And it also helps kids develop at whatever their speed is. Not all kids develop at the same speed. And some need more help, more assistance. And so if a kid needs more, the teacher can spend more time with this kid than the kid here. That's the go-getter.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, the majority of kids I saw were graduating at 16 years old from high school.
A lot of missionary kids use ACE.
Yeah.
You know, but I have to tell you, I had one kid when I taught in Minneapolis. He was a foster kid. He had gotten kicked out of it 3 or 4 schools, and they moved him to another foster home that went to our church. Very traditional, kind of fundamentalist. And they said to the state foster care, look, public school's not working for him. Our church has ACE school. We'd like you to pay for him to be there. And, you know, Minnesota foster, you think they're going to pay for a Christian school? No. They said, we'll make you a deal. If he has an academically successful year, that means on average moves up a grade in every subject, average, and we pay for it, then from there on out, the state will pay for every year thereafter that he keeps having an academic successful year. Well, the year I came on to teach was after he jumped 2 grades. His foster parents paid for out of their own pocket, right? And they went in and said, here's the deal. We had you guys sign a note that we wrote because you didn't want a paper trail, but we have it here. And the state foster care had a cow. And finally they said, all right, you will get a check reimbursing you guys, but it will not say that it's for Christian school or anything, and you keep your mouth shut about it. And yeah, Jerry, if you're listening, I'm bragging on you because he was one of my best students. And that's how well he succeeded in that environment.
Oh yeah, our daughter just ate it up, and I've always loved ACE, the system, the way it works, and I think it's a great model, and it could and should be adopted more. But yeah, but it just shows that there are certain elements that are missing, and somehow there's something wrong with our educational system that is missing. Because, you know, it's funny, up in the 1800s, up until probably the mid 1900s, the one-room schoolhouse succeeded, right? And you would have grades 1 through 12 in one big, like in a church or in one big building, one big room.
Yeah.
And, you know, everybody got a certain lecture at a certain time. Then they would break up the little ones here, and they would, you know, every grade was working at a different level. And, and a lot of times the older kids would help with the younger ones. Yeah. Even. Because, I remember that, you know, the 12th grader can help a 9th grader, 9th grader can help a 6th grader, 6th to 3rd, you know, and on down.
That's a lot like family homeschooling.
Yeah. So the smarter we've gotten, the dumber we've gotten. We've lost a lot, I think. But accelerated Christian education is what ACE stands for.
They're still around.
Those people. Oh, I'm sure they are.
Yeah.
A lot of I don't think they're as big as they were at one time,
aren't.
which is too bad. I don't know why so many.
Well, it's not glitzy enough. The people that the well-off that send their kids to private school, it's kind of seen as too bare bones, you know? And so when I taught, this is how effective it was. We had a room right off the sanctuary as a long hall, and you had these little flip down desks all around the perimeter. So every kid was faces the wall, right?
You face the wall.
And, but you had your consumable workbooks called PACE, Packet of Accelerated.
The faces.
And then beyond that, there was their lunch fees, because we had a daycare at this church. So the kitchen there, they made lunch for us, same cook, did all of it. And then for phys ed, we went down to the YMCA. They had programs for us. So we had the full deal. every kid had to pay for their activity fees, their lunches, and their consumable workbooks. But as far as tuition, the church board said, if your family attends here and supports the church, there's no tuition. If you're not a member of this church community, it was a small tuition, but we had less than a dozen students who weren't from the church. They actually paid my salary as assistant pastor and minister of education at the church. So one of the ministers of the church was paid for by people who didn't attend the church. Mm. And the people who did attend the church didn't have to pay the tuition, which became my salary. It was kind of a slick deal the way we worked out. And believe me, I did not make a lot. I was pretty poor. But it was my first ministerial gig right out of college. And it was great. I felt really like I accomplished a lot.
Yeah, no, like I said, I think AC is one of the best programs I've ever seen, and I think I actually think that ACE would really work in at-risk communities. I think it's a place where it would really work because the individual learning, where the kids face the wall and they have the dividers, with a fold-down desk, and then of course I think once an hour. They turn around and then they interact.
Yeah, we would have certain things. Like we put on a school play. We'd always start the day with chapel.
Right. But the other thing that I like, I don't know if you all did it this way, but like they would pass the test like to the left, like when they did a quiz.
No, that wasn't us. Okay. You go up to the table to score. You had to leave your pencil and only red markers were used. Where you would.
Oh, okay. Well, the way our church did it, I would give it to you, you would give it to the person next to you, and then you grade each other's test. Mm-hmm. And then if you got it wrong, then you had the opportunity. Then you had the opportunity to correct it. Mm-hmm. And if you corrected it, it didn't count against you. Is that?
No, in ACE, you didn't move on to the next unit until you got a perfect score.
Right.
Because you would keep going up there, checking the work. Then you would go back, study, rework it, track it. And then once you got it right, then you went on.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty much the same thing. But they would test it and then give it back, and you'd see you got it wrong. Then you had to figure out what you got wrong, correct it. And then once you got it all right, then you'd move to your next.
Yeah. Right. So get this, the church, I won't name the church, but his church I attended some 20 years ago had a Christian school. When the crash of 2008 happened, within 2 years later, they had to shut down. The economy was hurting so bad. Their tuition was several thousands of dollars a year for traditional classroom group learning. Mm-hmm. And they were K through 12. And I said to one of the ministers at church there for a long time, whose kids went there, I said to him, do you remember ACE? He says, oh, yeah. He says, back in the 70s, very popular. I said, so you know how the format, how cheap it is to run an ACE school? He said, yeah. I said, this church, instead of closing down this school, could have just changed the format to this bare bones and charged less than $2,000 a year. Less than $2,000 a year. And I said, your enrollment probably would have doubled, because at the same time, Grace Christian School closed. There are a few others closed because the economics hurt so bad. So families that did end up having to, including this guy I talked to, his kids he fought to get him into Jinx. His wife had to get a job at Jinx so that she would get preferential treatment because they didn't live in the Jinx district. But it's the thing. They actually could have increased their enrollment at a time that everybody's collapsing by switching to it. And I said, so why didn't that happen? Well, we would have had to let almost all of our faculty go anyway. And nobody really had the desire to do that. Eddie, think about this. it became all about the jobs for the faculty
Right.
at this Christian school. Eddie, that's what it is with our state public education.
Oh, yeah, sure.
It's all about the teachers and the faculty. They think it belongs to them. That's why they shut it down for COVID, because it was about their health, not the kids' health.
Yeah, and not even so much necessarily about the teachers as it is the administrative or the higher ups, that big office there on 31st Street.
Yeah. And that's I've often said, the big schools like Broken Arrow that, won't split into several schools, campuses, where they could have 33 boys playing football at the same time instead of 11. They want that gold ball so bad that they'll build their big campuses so they'll have more athletes to pick from and cherry pick. But
they still can't win it.
I know. The trophy is not that gold plastic in the glass case. The trophies are the kids.
Yeah.
And you have a chance to develop 3 times as many, but they're not interested in that.
Right.
They're interested in what they want, not what's best for their kids. Yeah, I'm a little worked up here.
Yeah, sounds like it.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Hey, happy anniversary. This has been the end of our 3rd year. We are now starting our 4th year of our podcast as a team.
Wow.
I know you started it a little earlier than that as a solo project, but yeah.
Wow. Okay.
There we go.
Happy anniversary to us and you, Alto.
We are into number 4.
Yeah.
Season 4.
Alto, our longest surviving listener. Hey, I do want to finish this, but okay. So anyway, we're talking about the impoverished groups and everything. Anyway, specifically the new rule that Stitt was asked to consider proposed that any district with fewer than half of its students scoring at a basic performance level on state reading and math tests would suffer an accreditation deficiency. The district's accreditation status would be lowered even further if in subsequent years if it failed to improve test scores by at least 5%. So that's what they're fighting. And don't fight it. Why fight it? Why not? I don't understand that. Why not see it as a challenge? What? 5%? We're going to improve by 10. We're going to improve by 20. Set the bar at 20 and improve by 10. I mean, that's the way you do it, right?
Yeah.
And then you become a model school. I mean, quit. And then, of course, here comes the favorite phrase. Here comes the favorite phrase that Democrats like to use: high stakes testing. They call it high stakes testing because if they lose their accreditation, then
they lose their state funding.
Right, they lose their state.
They
funding.
still have their county tax funding.
Right, so they put a name on it, high stakes testing. So, it's high stake. The high stake is the future of the children. Mm-hmm. It's not the funding that you need to be worrying about. Mm-hmm. It's the education of the children, the future generations of our state and our nation. That's what really needs to be at stake. I had
a high stakes test. I didn't get to keep my driver's license unless I passed my eye exam this week. Hey, look, life's about that. Yeah, there's something
there are people taking EKGs.
Yeah.
Testing your...
they just don't want to have to face the consequences of their bad performance.
There you go.
They call it, high stakes. Well, yeah, it's time to pay the piper.
Yep. Pay that old piper.
Yeah.
Here's one that... So there's been in New Jersey, a town of Montclair, okay, they put a ban on gas-powered leaf blowers.
Oh, God.
Yeah. And they're growing around the country, but so is the blowback from the landscaping industry.
Sure.
It says, if you look at here's what this representative who got this, or this person, a lady named Jessica Stoltzberg is who got this initiative to get them banned in New Jersey. If you look at what this machine does, how loud it is, how much it pollutes, it's not normal to be accepted where we live, where our children play. And she's a crusader against gas-powered leaf blowers. She's a crusader against gas-powered leaf blowers. There's so many more things you could be crusading against. But anyway, they complain that too much emphasis is on high. Oh, I'm sorry. I put the high stakes testing in the middle of this. Anyway, since the ban took effect in October, Montclair has been healthier, cleaner, quieter community.
Really?
Yeah.
With trash, leaves, debris, clippings all over the street.
Well, no. They just banned the gas powered. You have to use electric powered.
So
battery powered,
or
corded, right? But the ban is being challenged in court by landscapers, of course.
Yeah,
because it's just the push to move away from burning fossil fuels to power cars and homes is drawing opposition from business groups. The move to switch to battery powered leaf blowers has the industry complaining of increased cost and decreased performance.
Sure.
Because the batteries don't last that long. They're expensive. But also, just think about it, Dave. Because I had a gas powered Black & Decker and you could have the one battery that did your weed whacker I mean, listen, I don't want a gas powered because I don't want to be cranking and having to
this is you and me as homeowners. Imagine you doing it for a living.
Exactly. That's the difference. Exactly. So, but as an as part of the industry, like I now use a lawn guy, and they have the big ones where they wear the power pack on their back, and that sucker, it blows, But yeah, I mean, it doesn't bother me. Nobody in the neighborhood, I hardly hear it. In fact, in my house, of course, I have thermal windows, which keep noise down. But anyway, so I see them out my window and they're blowing. It doesn't disturb me or anything.
I'm probably one of those people more than anybody who's affected by the noise.
Really?
Yes. Keep in mind, they're used much greater concentration in the late fall when the leaves come down.
Right.
Okay. Guess who's putting up Christmas lights? Okay. I can't get away from it because I'm working outside these homes. And if it isn't the very house I'm at, it's the neighbor on either side. Right. So I can't even have a phone conversation.
Yeah.
So I get that. The noise, when they say pollution, they're referring to noise pollution. Okay. They're being vague and ambiguous for purpose here. But having said that, first time when I bought my first house, I needed painted. I painted it with a brush hand, right? When I went into business as a home improvements contractor, I am a brush and roller painter. One of the first jobs I got actually was at Christ the King Marquette School. They were talking there earlier. They needed me to paint their daycare building. And I did that on manpower hours to take. I wasn't anywhere close to being competitive bid. I need to go get an airless sprayer. If I want to compete, I've got to have the same tools that everybody else is to be the most competitive. The same is true with leaf blowers. You got one of those backpack gas powered ones. Oh my God, you can get a half hour's work done in 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It's that powerful.
Oh yeah, and if I use a battery pack, if I use the battery, okay, it will last maybe 15 minutes
at most.
Yeah, at most.
Those 10, things suck bad. In fact, when I bought my first battery pack one, it came with 2 batteries because they knew I was going to have to change out.
And it'll last maybe 6 months to a year. It'll last 2 years if you're a homeowner and you use it every weekend.
Yes.
If you're a commercial guy, that battery will probably only last you 1 season.
Yeah, but Eddie, they won't blow a pile of oak leaves. They'll do grass clippings.
Right. But I'm saying even if they do whatever you're trying to blow with it, you got to replace it.
Yeah.
You got to replace it every year because the battery will burn out after recharging.
Now, the electrical one, for a long time before I just recently bought a battery, I used electric one.
Corded?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You did.
Yeah, and it was, I didn't get nearly the volume that my son, who had a landscaping business, he had a gas-powered one.
Right.
And I mean, his gas-powered one will move rocks. Fact is, this winter, we put in a septic tank. He's building a new house. And we would have to bust this limestone to get down 5 feet, solid limestone. And we would take that leaf blower, and it was boulders bigger than my fist. The thing was, the gas-powered one was whipping those out. Okay. Your little battery-powered electric ain't going to do squat. So I'm just saying, it's going to cost the homeowner.
Oh, yeah.
And as far as pollution, as far as you with gasoline, okay, let's do the polluting down at the coal-fired electric plant then. How does that feel? Well, if you can't see it, you don't think it exists. But most of your electric cars are still using fossil fuels just down at the electric plant.
Yeah, and as far as pollution, what's going to happen with all those batteries eventually? I mean, just imagine if everybody uses these things and you got to replace them once a year.
Yeah.
The thousands and thousands and thousands of batteries. Then you got the waste disposal of those, and you can't just dispose of batteries like you throw away paper. And so it's a nightmare waiting to happen.
So let's expand it just a little bit. Remember all of Al Gore's stuff about, he got rid of the incandescent light bulbs. We went to the curly fries bulb, right? The little swirly. The only people who actually follow the law on that are government buildings, because to dispose of a fluorescent, you're supposed to use a toxic waste disposal. Eddie, I never went to toxic. I always threw mine in the trash. But our government is wasting our tax dollars to do all that special disposal stuff, because they're wasting our money, not their own. And so thank God LED technology came around, because all of these things like these batteries and stuff, what are we going to do with them? The toxic waste disposal is going to be a problem.
Yeah, it is.
They don't want nuclear plants, because what do we do with the wasted rods? Well, okay.
Hint. Invest in nuclear.
Yeah.
That's coming. They're going to reopen nuclear plants in America.
There's a big story came up. We're on a good segue for that. Most of the rare earth minerals that go into the technologies for smart batteries and all this, China's been controlling it, right? This week, Norway announced a huge finding on their land of rare earth minerals. So that's a development. I just thought I'd throw that out there. That's that. Yep.
All right. Let's do gunfire erupted Friday at a memorial service at a Salvation Army cross-generation worship and community center near Chicago. It's a suburb of Chicago, Blue Island, Illinois. I've never heard of it, but anyway, CBS reported this. Now, here's the thing. The memorial service was for Princess Jama Bell, 19, who was shot and killed on June 3rd in Chicago, according to CBS News. Bell was reportedly an unintended victim of the shooting, which claimed the life of an 18-year-old acquaintance. Okay. There's a lot of young people, and they're upset because my granddaughter, they loved her, said her grandmother. And then, of course, some of her friends are waiting for revenge. So I guess this is all retaliation. The attack wounded 4 people, and authorities transported 2 victims to area hospitals with minor injuries. 3rd victim sustained critical injury, according to the outlet. So the reason I pull that is yet they're still trying to take the guns from ordinary citizens. By the way, what I didn't pull from that article was that it could have been worse, but there was a licensed gun owner at the funeral, and that licensed gun owner returned fire, and that's what chased. There would have been more people killed.
A good guy with a gun.
A good guy with a gun. But this is these cities where you don't have well, I don't want to say that's not the word, where you have sound gun laws. Let's put it that way. Sound gun laws, where people can own guns, citizens with a right and a reason to own guns or allowed to have guns. You're going to have people who don't have a right and who have bad intent will have guns, and they will use them. And it's just, David, tell me, you're the mental health guy.
Okay.
What's wrong with these nuts that can't see this? I mean, how can a society, you've got one party over here, the Democrats, and a group of society, a part of society that is bought into this notion that if you take away the guns from the good people, it's going to end gun violence.
Well, let's use a scripture. Romans 2 talks about a reprobate mind. That's not a mental decay or a physical, it's a moral decay that eventually screws up your thinking. Remember when we talked about Dr. Peter McCullough referenced mass platform psychosis? That's when society goes off the rails. And I have to say, referencing mental illness, it's almost an insult to mental illness to associate with a reprobate mind. Because a reprobate mind is a willfully moral devolution. Somebody suffering a real clinical mental illness, there's some of the nicest, sweetest, best heart. You run into a kid who's what we used to call mentally retarded, some of the best hearts you find. Doesn't have an enemy in the world. So to reference moral decay as somehow being mentally ill is insulting to mentally ill. Okay. But again, I think it's what we call the reprobate mind. That is just, it's a moral and spiritual devolution that you remember Rush Limbaugh talked about bias confirmation.
Yeah.
We want to believe something, therefore we choose to believe it. You see people spreading stuff on social media because it fits a narrative, a template, as Rush used to refer to.
Yeah.
And then you get discredited when it's proven to be a lie. But you spread it because you wanted so bad to believe it that you believed it. That's what's going on here.
It's funny you mentioned that because I was thinking about, you always hear about the gun laws in Australia, how Australia passed these stringent gun laws and you don't have the gun murders that they may have had. They had some mass killings before. But what's interesting, if you do the research though, they have as many mass killings, but they're with knives. And the big one is with cars. People doing mass murder, they're running cars into homes and into groups of people. I mean, it's just the weirdest thing. But here's what's funny. One of the countries with the strictest gun laws in the world is our neighbor to the south, Mexico. And Mexico is like in the top 5 of murders.
Yeah, the cartels.
The cartels, they're murders, and there you have strictest gun laws on earth. Yeah. Nobody's allowed to own a gun legally in Mexico. And so all you have is illegal gun ownership. Right. And that's where, and so now the cartels own the country.
if they had American-style Second Amendment rights, you probably wouldn't have a cartel.
Exactly. So if you want somebody as an example, don't go to Australia. Go to Mexico as an example of what it's like when you have totally strict gun laws.
Yeah. Have you heard of the lawlessness in the cartels of Switzerland, where every teenager is issued a gun and taught how to use it? That's their army.
Yeah.
They're a militia country.
Yeah. They have them in their home. Everybody. Right.
And in Israel, any Israeli citizen has to have a gun, especially on the settlements.
You never hear about that, do you?
No.
They don't ever bring up Switzerland or Israel. No. They always bring up Australia. Mm-hmm. But they never bring up Mexico on the one end or Israel and Switzerland on the other end.
Remember this, I think it was a Christmas parade where a black man took his minivan and mowed down in Wabasha, I think it was, or what? I forget. Someplace near.
Yeah, it wasn't
near Miami.
No. It was. It was. Yeah.
It was a black man.
Yeah, it was a black man. But whatever vehicle it was, yeah.
It was a parade.
Yeah.
And why didn't Biden show up for that?
You know, the other thing about it, it just disappeared. Mm-hmm. Even the news, there's not a big news about it at all.
Yeah, you remember the shooting of the Christian school in Nashville.
Yep.
Well, it was we find out as a transgender.
Right. In the manifesto, they never released it.
They are prosecuting the newspaper that published the manifesto.
Yeah.
That's the real criminal here, right? The courts wanted to keep it secret.
Yeah. Why?
Yeah.
Why?
And why haven't we found out who is on the clients list for Jeffrey Epstein? Because they're too well connected. Yeah. Why don't we have the interview that Biden did with the FBI over all of his lapse of security with documents that he had no legal right to have, and he gave them to a book publisher?
Yet Donald Trump has committed treason.
Yeah.
For having documents where he had the right to have them.
Yeah. He paid a lawyer to deal with a non-disclosure agreement, and he listed it as a legal expense, and now he's facing 270 years in prison for calling payments to a lawyer a legal expense.
Yeah, which reminds me, Judge Judy on the Trump case verdict, it's nonsense.
Yeah.
She says it's nonsense.
Yeah.
She says, she would be happier. Oh, go ahead.
It is a combination of state and federal laws put into one lawsuit that has never, ever been charged, much less convicted. Trump is the only person ever to be found guilty of that collusion of state and federal law. We still don't know what federal law he broke.
Well, the federal government decided not to press charges or bring a case because they found no case. Mm-hmm. Right. Judge Judy said, I'd be much happier as someone who owns property in Manhattan if the DA would take care of criminals who are making it impossible for citizens to walk the streets or use the subway, to use his efforts to keep those people off the street than to spend $5 to $10 million of taxpayers' money trying Donald Trump on this nonsense. Mm-hmm. So when Judge Judy gets involved, and she's not a Trump supporter, she didn't vote for him, doesn't want him as president, but she says this is nonsense. Yeah, it's crazy stuff. So I have one more thing here, one more article that I have, if you have more. But
we got some state elections.
Okay, good. Yeah. But I have one more. High-profile Republicans are set to appear alongside left-wing activists at a dark money-backed media festival. A number of high-profile Republicans are scheduled to appear alongside left-wing activists at a media event for the Texas Tribune, a nonprofit media outlet that receives millions of dollars from left-wing dark money groups. Republicans attending are Representatives Dan Crenshaw, Tony Gonzalez, and Michael McCall. Former Illinois Representative Adam Kinzinger.
Oh, God, yeah.
Whining Kinzinger. former Wyoming Representative Liz Cheney. Wouldn't recall those last two as Republicans.
Yeah.
Political consultant Karl Rove, former Texas Governor Rick Perry, Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt.
Oh, wow.
Oh, man, he's among them. Former U.S. Ambassador to the UN, John Bolton. Those are Republicans. I'm not going to list the Democrats. So this is a meeting of dark money groups. It's a media festival, and these guys are going down there to try to raise money for their next moves, the next things they're running for. What do you think Governor Stitt is planning on running for?
Boy, I don't know.
Senate? Is there anything coming up? I guess, yeah, in 2 years, right? 2 years. What's his name's back up?
Yeah, I mean, Governor Stitt will be termed out in 2 years of statewide office, so he can't.
I guess Markwayne Mullins up first, right? Because didn't he come in?
It's the
midterm. But didn't he come in the midterm? Or did he just Inhofe? Did he just decide to not run for re-election? Did he finish his term?
No, he did step out. So yeah, it was special election technically to finish a term. So I don't know what the rotation is on Inhofe's term.
Yeah, I forget too. But
I'll look that up. But first of all, I really don't like using the term dark money. It just means, I mean, if you and I as an organization pool some money to hire lobbyists, that's by the same definition, that's dark money.
Well, yeah, usually, dark money essentially is money that no one knows where it came from.
Yeah,
we don't know who gave the money
donors to that association.
Right.
They can remain anonymous.
Right.
But we tend to use the term dark money when it's a initiative we don't support. But when it is something like a pro-life effort that our church gets involved, we don't want to call that dark money. So I'm very careful about that because it is a constitutional right to do that. I mean, that Citizens United was the case that defended that. The only thing they said is it must be kept separate from the campaign, not a mixing of funds or even a collusion of strategy. Right.
An independent group has to organize to do that.
Yeah. That's why they call it an independent expenditure.
Right.
And, is there collusion? Yeah, probably all the time. But on paper, you better hide it. It's happening. And so typically what happens is this dark money group will try to forecast what their strategy is so that the campaign can hear, oh, okay, that's how, okay, we'll do it that way. Because a lot of the money then, a lot of campaigns are, the dark money, if you will, or the independent expenditures is far greater than what the candidacy in the campaign itself actually has. And we saw that happen this last week, and several very powerful political leaders in Oklahoma were taken out by grassroots voters in primaries. So I know, the dark money thing, this all really started with the McCain-Feingold campaign financing. And the very terrible thing about that, and Bush Jr., Bush 43, was horrible. He opposed it, but yet he signed it thinking, well, the Supreme Court will strike it down. He passed the buck, didn't want it. And Supreme Court didn't do anything about it, except for the Citizens United case. But here's what it did. It exempted media operations from those limitations it put on others. And I said at the time, political entities will now take over media operations. Boy, if you haven't seen that. I mean, the media has been destroyed because of it, because political operatives have seen the strategy. I just read just now George Soros buying one of the biggest radio groups audacity that
been.
came out today. And he's doing that, to control not what people think, but what they think about.
Right.
That's the power and control of the media, is to decide what issues are important. And I don't know. Eddie, I think any solution we have is going to be worse than what we're dealing with now. I think we need to get rid of all of McCain-Feingold, and we'll go back to a better day.
Well, yeah. See, that's my opinion. I don't want to get caught up in semantics of dark money, right money. What I was going to say is white money, light money, dark money, whatever. If the Democrats are doing it, we need to do it.
Yes.
We need to start. In other words, in fact, not only do we need to start doing it, we need to do it better.
Right. We look what happened in the midterms 2 years ago. We tied one of our hands behind our back. We let the Democrats vote for a month.
Right.
And then we said, no, we're going to vote one day.
Right. Exactly.
And then we wonder why we didn't have the turnout.
Yeah. And look at the situation with what was the congressman from New York, the guy who basically made up
Soros. Soros. Santos.
George Santos. He basically created a perfect candidate, the one, but then you've got a crook from New Jersey.
Yeah.
And the Democrats just look the other way. They don't care. They're going to keep their seat.
We literally didn't wait for the courts to throw them out.
Right. That's true. Yeah, we didn't. Right.
And it was led by the
Romney.
New York, and the New York Republican delegation.
Right.
Voted with the Democrats to kick him out. All of the Oklahoma Republicans said, no, we'll get rid of him when you get rid of Biden.
Right, exactly.
Because Biden lies way worse.
Well, yeah, not only Biden, they've got so many. What's the guy from Connecticut?
Blumenthal.
Yeah,
Menendez. You got so many crooks on that side. But we won't even wait for the courts.
It was really Romney.
And then
it was really Romney, though. That was the main guy.
Well, see, look, to me, Romney isn't even a Republican.
Yeah.
I mean, in reality.
Well, neither are half of these people that I just named.
You put Stitt in. I don't know.
Well, no, that's why I said half of them.
Right, Kinzinger,
Kinzinger, Liz Cheney, Karl Rove,
and then what's the eye patch guy?
Oh yeah, he's weird.
Oh yeah,
Dan Crenshaw.
Yeah.
In fact, he's downright scary to me. I don't know what he is. He's just weird.
Oh, he's been milking that eye patch for sympathy. We don't think he's evil because he has an eye patch.
No. I don't think he's evil. Just his positions, and he's all over the place. I mean, everybody now is pretty sure. Knows that he's a rhino. I mean,
he's one of the last vestiges of the Bush dynasty in Texas.
Incognito.
Yeah. So it's a tough deal.
Hey, so what do you got?
Man.
Oh yeah, let's get local. Let's bring it home.
Oh, by the way, we had Steve Kunzweiler, DA, last week. He's facing some blowback today. And yesterday,
his show last week, or
no, it was unfortunately sad. A girl, Brayley Owens, teenage girl, caught up in some gang warfare and got shot and killed. They mostly don't think she was the intended target. It was drive-by shooting kind of scenario, and 3 suspects were apprehended and charged. And her mother is very disappointed that she was notified that Kunzweiler settled out of court with 10-year prison sentences and then 10-year, I guess, suspended or whatever after that. And she says, really? That's all my daughter's worth. She's really taken it as an insult. And I think a lot of it, I have some inside knowledge. My daughter, just finished working for Kunzweiler. Yesterday was her last day. She's having a baby next week. So, they really try to be sensitive to the victims and make sure the victims' voices are not forgotten. Well, sentencing is going to come up. Kunzweiler's only going to recommend to the judge 10 years.
Right.
Behind bars.
The judge
doesn't have to take that.
Right.
But the impact testimony, the family plans on really making their case.
Mm-hmm.
I think Kunzweiler's going to get some bad press out of this.
Not necessarily. I mean, not if the judge overrules. And
I'm saying the family's going to be, they already went to, I think it was Channel 8. And last night they expressed great disappointment. I left it on after that miserable hockey game your son was part of, while he works for the Florida team.
Let's move on.
Yeah, I know. But anyway, so I was listening. You had it on while I was doing some other work, and I hear this thing, and I'm like, yeah, obviously, Kunzweiler's job is justice, but there is a humanitarian side to it that you don't do that and you don't last, So evidently this one, they didn't feel they were heard. We'll see what Kunzweiler has to say.
Yeah, do you know the details of the?
They went into it to some degree. They did. The mother did agree there were some difficulties. One, they never found the weapon. And so, you have to now create a bunch of circumstantial evidence. But the three defendants were willing to take this deal. Kind of hard to say you're innocent,
Right. Oh, no. Yeah, see, that's the thing. If they're willing to take the deal, and without a weapon, without evidence of a weapon and all, it may not have been an open shut case, as they say. Yeah. And so maybe it was not as easy to prove and to get done. Do we know the racial component of the?
I think it's a white girl. Could be Hispanic white. I don't know.
And the perps.
I don't know.
Yeah. See that always has something to do with it too. So it's
yeah.
In today's world, nothing is cut and dry.
Nothing
is cut and dry.
Tulsa Police just apprehended a very wanted man.
Yeah. Illegal alien who killed a girl in was it Virginia?
Maryland?
Yeah, it's Maryland. You're right, next door. Maryland.
There's part of me, excuse me, I know I'm going to sound hard.
And wait a minute. And she was like, wasn't she 12 or 13?
That's a different case.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of cases now come to light of illegal aliens murdering people.
I think the other one was in New York, the 12 or 13-year-old.
Well, yeah. The one I'm dealing with is a 35-year-old mother of 5.
Oh, okay. Ooh.
Yeah, what makes her, this is the cynical side. I'm sorry, excuse me here. You ever notice, and Greta Van Susteren was always good about this, and Nancy may say, if the victim is a hot-looking woman, boy, it sells. The Holloway case, I mean, they rode that.
Oh, yeah, the Holloway.
Well, evidently, this mother is just gorgeous. And the crime, the death was heinous brutality and included rape. So, and that crime took place a year ago. And here it is a year later, and they just arrested him sitting in a bar in East Tulsa, Oklahoma, 21st and Garnett area. He just fit right in, and evidently comfortable enough. He was arrested without incident, and it was federal authorities tracking and tipped off Tulsa Police, who worked with federal authorities and made it happen safely. And he's sitting in the Tulsa jail now, waiting extradition. So kudos, Tulsa Police. And by the way, Tulsa Police now looking for getting a new police chief Franklin only served, 4 years maybe? Anyway.
I thought they chose him already.
Yeah, I think so. I haven't. Yeah, they did make the choice.
Yeah.
But I want to get to state news. We had a bloodletting politically. I figured it. Okay. The bunch that ran the Senate, Greg Treat, and we've talked about him, and just the power hungry collection power. Going after Nathan Dahm. Nathan sat here a couple of times, told us just how nasty it's gotten. Well, Greg Treat's termed out, but he got his handpicked successor to get all the support in the Republican caucus to become the next dictator, President Pro Temp, Greg McCourtney from Ada, or, South Central, his district, South Central or East Central Oklahoma. McCourtney had to win a primary. What do you know? He lost. He's done as of this November. So he may be there for a special session if they have one. But I think there was dark money involved in that one. Don Spencer and OK2A. I think probably Liza with parental choice and, vaccine health, rights. Those people have gotten very involved, grassroots. And here's the thing. Now, I'm just mentioning him as case number one of about 7 or 8, including some right here in our part of Tulsa, who got booted out by the mega Trump Republican base.
Mega or MAGA?
MAGA.
Okay.
Yeah. Because Jessica Garvin was another one just seen as too liberal, too leftist. McCourtney very much that way. Both of those have health care money backing them big time. And right here, Jeff Boatman, who is their state representative, tried to jump to an open seat for Senate and got defeated by the mayor of Bixby.
Yeah, let me tell you about it, because I live in that district. And it was bad, because I don't know who his political campaign people were, but I started getting these texts, and these were just the nastiest texts against the former mayor of Bixby, and my wife as well. And I don't know where they got everybody's. And
they were last minute texts, right?
No, they started about 2 weeks before.
Oh, they did?
Yeah, they started 2 weeks before, and just started slamming. I can't think
Guthrie.
of Guthrie, yeah.
Yeah, Mayor Guthrie of Bixby.
Brian Guthrie. I can't remember. Anyway, but and then Guthrie, he was just sending out his usual cards and with his family and just good looking family, and good. Everything sounded great, but these texts came out and were just the nastiest things. And one thing from my own and my wife's reaction, you don't mess with people's. There's one thing to invade their home with mail,
junk mail. Yeah, the mailbox.
The mailbox. That's okay. We're used to it, and we'll look at it and email to extent. But there's something about when you start texting me and phoning me and sending me stuff, there is a line. Let that be a warning to any candidates. That's something I won't do. So it may be a thing of the future. It may be work in the future, but that was a turn. That turned me against Boatman, and I know it turned my wife against him.
Yeah.
And so
you remember a couple years ago, last election cycle, you saw some cheap shots against Mark Tedford. And Tedford wasn't even the candidate. It was just the Kelly Dunkerley.
Yeah, Kelly.
His association with this evil Mark Tedford. And that crossed a line. Now, the funny thing is that same campaign that was, opposing Kelly Dunkerley, he also got in people's personal space when he started sending applications for absentee ballots where he printed out all their personal information to the election board. People felt creeped out. That was Bob Jack was the opponent. And here's the thing. I think we talked about this. It's really sad when you spend all this money on a campaign and your candidacy gets taken down by your own money.
Yeah.
When going negative or just creeping people out or crossing the line, personal space, whatever it is, if it so denigrates and demeans your own candidacy, then you defeated yourself, not your opponent.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's the deal. And that's why it's, we have to be careful. Yeah.
And, Jeff Boatman, he's always been very cordial to me, but no, I never got the sense that he was real conservative.
Right.
Okay. I mean, he advocated for some of the things I appreciated. He worked out some things, but he was very much kind of on, part of the leadership team in the House trying to go over to the Senate. And that was one McCourtney and Greg Treat. They really wanted him in there. And not only did McCourtney not get him, McCourtney himself got booted and Garvin. And, here's the next thing I got to say. The way Treat took over the House Republican caucus and then became Senate President pro temp, what came with that was this Senate reelection campaign. And a lot of money would get funneled into it. And yeah, it's dark money, okay, because it's independent expenditures. But they would allocate, used to be like $30,000 for each incumbent Republican. And according to my source, and my source happens to be someone who would know himself, okay, they dropped that down to just a few thousand. And then Greg Treat spending the rest of it. And some people believe most of that went through Fount Holland, who's not associated. Fount Holland ran Joy Hoffmeister's campaign to take up Barisi using education industry money. So the same leftists that have been our problem in education funded Joy Hoffmeister to take under the guise of she's a real reforming Republican.
Right.
Yeah, you're right. So anyway, what I want to say in this is I think we're at the point where we need some civic-minded, competent auditor to look at that Republican Senate reelection campaign fund and account for where that money went. I'm hoping someone like Nathan Dahm or somebody could really make that happen. Nathan now is chairman of the GOP, the OK GOP. I'd like to see something happen, but I am going to call out that dark money expenditure. I just violated my own law. I called something dark money. It's a nice phrase to use, isn't it?
Dark money.
Yeah, it's just easy to use, especially when you want to denigrate something. So Boatman went down. Gosh, mostly the Senate but in the House side, there were a few of them went down, incumbents.
Right.
So
on the Republican side, we're not sure yet because we've got the, regular elections coming up. They still have to run against Democrats in the fall.
Yeah, no. Now several of them, there are no Democrats.
They're unopposed.
There are some coming up too that the August runoff is the generalist, so to speak. Let's see. Almost every sheriff got reelected except McCurtain County, the one who is colluding to not just kill, but then bury the bodies of the journalists. Yeah, he got voted out.
This sounds like a movie.
Yes, there's got to be a movie made on that one. Yeah. And then even our friend Chris Morris in McAllister, who is facing felony indictments for selling his lemon of an off-road vehicle as a brand new vehicle to his sheriff's department.
Yeah, I guess some people didn't care.
And what I was saying is the voters still preferred him.
Yeah, to his opponent. Yeah.
Now, I've sat with him. He consulted with me on some serious mental health issues his jail is facing. He's a nice guy. His people skills are really good. But if he screwed up, he screwed up. We'll see what happens there. I think I'm mostly really happy with what I saw at the electorate. I really think the mega Republican base is really a powerful force in Oklahoma electoral politics.
You got to work on your A.
Yeah, MAGA.
There you go. There you go.
I used to be worse the other way. I wouldn't refer to nickels. They're knackles. What does it get? Knackles. MAGA. Anyway.
Go, MAGA.
Yeah. So, but yeah, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
A big deal because, I mean, Stitt wanted to clean house in the Senate. I don't doubt that Stitt probably directed independent expenditures. That
Yeah, here's the deal with Governor Stitt. I think, bottom line, I think he is a really good governor. Okay, I think he's a good governor, but he's also an ambitious person.
Mm-hmm.
And you have this convergence of a good, ambitious guy. And sometimes those things can seem to conflict and not show your best side.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So you can get this impression of Governor Stitt as, out for himself or trying to do these different things, almost kind of like Donald Trump, right?
I think you're onto something.
And it may be because, but see, the reason is, and if you think about it, they're both in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
Stitt
was a mortgage lending
guy, right? But he had to deal with business and had some shakeups and issues there.
Yeah.
But so when you come out of that world, there's a certain way about you to succeed. You have to have guts. You have to have a drive.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, it's like my feelings about George Kaiser, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a guy that has amassed billions. One of the wealthiest guys we know in America, right?
Mm-hmm.
I call him Little George because Soros is the big George and Little George is Kaiser.
Mm-hmm.
But that's how I distinguish between them. But anyway, I don't agree with his politics,
right,
by all means.
Mm-hmm.
But his business acumen are just amazing.
Yes.
Same with Soros, actually.
Yeah.
We can hate what he does, but it's all legal.
Mm-hmm.
But see, this is what's so frustrating, that the Democrats try to prosecute for Donald Trump using who is manipulating benefit 100 times what Donald Trump is using them for. If you look at the currency trading that Soros does, buying these different media groups, as you said, the new radio syndicate that it's not just one station.
No,
it's
a big group
of stations and things. So these are the things that, you look at George Kaiser, the banks. You got Bank of Oklahoma. He's got the Bank of Dallas. I don't know if you're familiar with that. If you go down, it has the same symbol as BOK. But so you can use your BOK card. You go to Dallas, anywhere you see Bank of Dallas, you see that symbol, you just throw your ATM card in there. Boom. It's, no fee even. Bank of, I think it's Bank of Phoenix. Bank of Denver.
Okay.
He owns banks in all these different states, and it's growing and growing and growing. He's grown this kingdom, So, and the way he got BOK, it's a fascinating story. I'm not going to tell it to you, but anyway, like I said, some people with a squeamish disposition or constitution might not like it. It's not the cleanest of ways, but apparently it's not illegal. So I have to marvel at the mind that could think about it and execute it.
But that was an analogy. You're talking about the drive and guts of Stitt.
Right. So that what I'm saying is, so with Governor Stitt, he's to a smaller degree a similar type of person, but he's on our side. So what I'm trying to get at is there are people who don't identify with or don't tend to like that type of person. But what I'm trying to say is don't hate it. It's something I think actually in the end, I think it's something we need more of.
Yeah.
We need more people like that know how the system works and to know and to have the means and the ability to pull it off. That's what we need.
Yeah. See, I add a third one, ego.
Yeah.
Don Rubin was my senator, and then, he went to Florida and ran their leg. I mentioned ego as though it's a bad thing. And Don, in fact, we were both working the Largen campaign, not that quarter at that time. And he said, no, you have to have an ego. You have to believe that you can do it better than it's being done, or you wouldn't run. And he said, that's the thing that sets apart these kinds of people that run for office. And I know Don Rhubarb had an ego, and I had to deal with that. You and I had a meeting the other day in the other room here with a person like that. So much self-confidence, so much belief. And that's a very unique thing about them. Is it wrong? It can be. Is it good? It can be. What I think I see in Stitt is he's his own man.
Right.
Because, he right after he got elected, Trump invited him to the White House, said great things in the cabinet room about him and everything. And now, I asked Pinnell a few months ago, I said, what's Stitt's problem with Trump? He said, I don't know, but it's frustrating me because I'd love to see Stitt get an appointment.
Yeah, I don't think he has a problem with Trump. I think he was trying to read tea leaves and he read the wrong leaves.
Yeah.
That's why he saw people going for DeSantis. And at that point, it seemed like DeSantis may have a chance.
I would say at this point, I know, Stitt, you don't take my advice, but I'm going to give it anyway. You would be best to tell the press here in Oklahoma, Trump is our guy. We had a process. He won, and I'm on his team.
Right.
I don't think there's a downside to Stitt to saying that. I think there's a big upside.
Right.
But that's the thing. I think it was Stitt. There's an ego. I would agree with you. There's still the potential for Stitt to be the best governor we've ever had.
Yeah.
He's still in the running.
Yeah.
He's made mistakes. He's done some great things.
Yeah. I think his positive side far outweighs any negative thing. And most of the negative things are the things that Andrea Egger, I remember her first name, Andrea Egger, has pointed out or tried to point out in the Tulsa world.
Yeah.
It's no, I think he's a great governor. Our state budget is in great shape, better shape, I think, than it's been in many, many, many moons. The negative parts about our state, I think, are local. But let me bring it to this, okay? If you look at Bixby, Jenks, Owasso, and let's say Skytook. I don't know much about Skytook, but if I look at Owasso, Jenks, BA, and Bixby, those communities seem to be thriving. They're expanding. They're doing well. The renovations and the upgrades and things that are, if you leave Tulsa, drive on their roads, their streets, and the remodeling of the downtown of Bixby.
You got to include Broken Arrow.
I said Broken Arrow.
Did you? Okay.
Yeah, I mentioned Broken Arrow.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So that's what I'm saying. As soon as you go there, you notice, wow.
Yeah, they're proactive.
Right. And here's the deal. They're focused on the people that are there, not the ones that they're wanting to come in. Tulsa is so always focused on migrants, on the gay population, the minorities, whatever the minority, whatever we want, for some reason, we want to be San Francisco of the Midwest.
Think about it. They want the people that are going to be needy.
Right. And the takers, not the givers.
Yeah. And it's not always material. I mean, like gay activists, they need government manipulation of the culture.
Yeah.
And they're trying to use so they want the people who are needy.
Right. But
in various ways.
Yeah. And so much of the money is going to those ends versus infrastructure. And that's why you're having the suburbs with widened, nice streets. And every time we hit Memorial out here, it's like, torn up streets or narrow streets or crowded streets. You've got this and that. And there's so much focus. This is another peeve of mine. There's so much focus on the highbrow crowd, I'll call them, the opera, the museums, and
type pros.
What type pros? Yeah. I mean, that's who is a part of it. Yeah, they are.
Just ask them; they'll tell you.
Well, I've spoken.
I know.
Yeah, but anyway, there's so much money that goes to these cultural things versus the infrastructure. I mean, if you didn't put so much money into having to, and even downtown, I understand there's a lot of emphasis and we want to keep downtown vibrant and so forth. But my goodness, come on. The people live in South Tulsa, in East Tulsa, in West Tulsa. They may work downtown, but they've got to go home. Let's get their homes secure, straightened out, safe. And then when that's taken care of, now let's get downtown squared away. And anyway, I could go on and on, but it just seems things are, as my dad used to say, bass-ackwards.
Right. I see. The thing I noticed about Broken Arrow, they had lots of land and their county roads and four-way stop signs. Right. You'd have these 1 mile sections. And Broken Arrow started in on a process of turning those into curbed with stormwater and 4-lane, with even a fifth, center turn lane. And what that did for the developers who would buy up this horse pasture and hay fields and turn it into a subdivision, because those developers had to pay for all those residential streets. That's a lot of people don't realize.
Yeah.
Developers, that's part of the cost of your home is the street. Broken Arrow at least said, hey, but when you pull on the arterial street, it can handle the traffic. We didn't do that in Southeast Tulsa, down where you live. I mean, 91st Street's still a dangerous joke where you live.
Thank you, yeah.
Tulsa didn't do that and still doesn't.
Right.
And you know what? Sometimes it's the very residents that don't want it widened because then the riffraff will drive through our area. That's how backwards they are.
Well, yeah, I don't think that's the case where I live, because you can't even, it takes you forever to get home.
Yes.
And to get out.
Oh, and
you take 101st Street between Memorial and Mingo,
Mhm.
if you're trying to get out of your neighborhood, right, onto 101st Street,
Mhm.
you can't do it hardly. I mean, there's so much traffic, especially if you're trying to turn left in either direction. You can't get out. You might as well turn right and go a half mile and then turn around and come back.
Exactly.
Because and there's a lot of traffic coming through there. So yeah, it's just
It's a crazy. We need better representation on that. But I do have to give Dewey Bartlett some credit. 20 years ago, Michael Bates mentioned, hey, we got this Planet Tulsa thing happening. I couldn't make the meeting, but I told Bates, I said, here's the thing Dewey needs to know is if he wants us to invest in downtown, he's lost that fight because downtown Tulsa is off in the corner of the county. I said, we need to recenter the city before that's going to happen. And Bates was asking me, now, how do you recenter the city? I said, look, you finish that loop going around the northwest area. Dewey bought that idea, and we at least have his surface road. Now all we need is Ryan Walters to take that area away from the McLean feeder districts of public, because no developer building a neighborhood is going to want to develop in McLean or even TPS schools.
Right.
So we need that to move over to Sperry District or Sand Springs or somebody to where a developer says, okay, I'll put in $1 million homes in this beautiful oak forest because that's a gorgeous area. My son's building up there, so I know. But you've got to have the right kind of infrastructure for that. So it does take some proactive thinking that prioritizes stormwater and traffic and streets.
There was an opportunity. I don't know if you remember, but I think at one time they were considering building the BOK at that curve. Well, where Grace.
Oh,
where Grace is.
Yeah,
because of that
the old
land,
Grace Fellowship campus.
The old Grace Fellowship in that area. Because there's still that open.
Oh, there's still lots of
land over there. And putting it there because the access to it from everywhere.
That is key. See, I wanted it Broken Arrow Expressway and I-44, right? It's across there. To the south and east, you see a whole bunch of warehouses there, UPS docks there. That to me is where it should be, where you have these couple interstates.
That's another place that works. The only problem there is that I don't know if there's enough open. I mean, you'd have to buy out.
Right. Well, you got an eminent domain, whether it's a horse pasture or a bunch of warehouses. But you remember Dallas, remember the old Texas Stadium in Irvine?
Yeah.
There's an interstate looping around you got the parking lot in the stadium open so God can see that old stadium. And after the football game, Debbie and I were able to get right on the highway and back to Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And that is so crucial. Downtown, you can't even hardly find parking.
Oh, no, I know. No, that's what I'm saying. But if you hit it right at that curve of 169, it's easy. It's not at 169, or you go straight through and you can get out, to where you're hitting.
Yeah. But I wanted it where two interstates.
No, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, that's fine.
Because you already have all those hotels up there by Drysdale's. Right. All that.
But there's a bunch of new hotels down there. In fact, it's even closer to the big one there. What's the DoubleTree? No, it's not the DoubleTree. What is that one there? On 71st and 169.
The Renaissance?
Yeah.
Is it
no, it's not the Renaissance.
Oh, yeah, something like that.
But you know which one I'm talking about, the real big one, right on 71st and 169.
Right. Yeah, it's the same company owns the Renaissance.
Right, but anyway, Missouri. But if you go further south, like at 91st, 81st, 91st, you got Holiday Inn, Garden, the Express, you got...
Hampton's over there by Spirit Bank Center.
Yeah, you got. Well, that's even further south, but even before that, there's all kinds of hotels up there.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm sorry, we're digressing.
We are. Yeah. I think you mentioned about being proactive.
Yeah. Not Dewey Bartlett. We're talking about Stitt.
Yeah.
Governor Stitt.
Stitt was really good at making sure we kept money for a rainy day. Now, Stitt gets credit for something he shouldn't get credit. Just like Mary Fallon got blamed for something. The economy, especially the oil economy. We were in a horrible recession in 2015. A lot of it's because we get a delayed impact of the national economy. The crash of 2008 really hit Oklahoma in about 12, 13, So anyway, that's where I'm at on that. Big week. We've got election coming up the last Tuesday in August. So that's going to decide a lot of things, plus all the city council races. Got a little announcement of that. We got a special guest coming in a couple weeks who ran for mayor, who was a very effective city councilor, Chris Medlock, agreed to come in. But next week, we've got a senator who survived Tuesday because he wasn't on the ballot. He's in the middle of his term, Dana Prieto. And he's bringing with him, hopefully this works, just was top vote getter for Nathan Dom's vacated seat, Christy Gillespie. So we're going to get to meet some great guests coming in next 2 weeks.
All right, good. So sounds like this may be too crowded for me in here.
It'll be good. Well, we had Alina and another candidate here.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. As long as the heads aren't too.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. All right.
That's
everybody.
why Medlock's by himself.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Well, listen, have a wonderful week. Olympic trials are on today.
Yeah. Wow.
And go Panthers. I
Yeah.
hope to have good news next week.
Do or die. Is it Sunday night?
Sunday night is
game 7.
Game 7.
Yeah.
The final game.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Yep.
All right, everybody. Take care, and we'll talk to you next week.
Yep. Bye.